Tally-ho! ItsOcean here, and for the longest time that I can remember, Resident Evil has been something that I've absolutely adored. I can't remember the exact age, but I think it was somewhere between watching SpongeBob and listening to teenage emo music, both of which I still do now, so who the fuck knows? The first experience that I had with old school Resident Evil was the Nintendo DS port of the original game titled Resident Evil Deadly Silence. I had seen gameplay before of Resident Evil, but was never lucky enough to play the actual damn games for myself. So getting this DS port was great. I absolutely adored this game, so I set out to try and obtain all the Resident Evil games available for the Nintendo GameCube, which was the main system that I had at the time. And I succeeded! I became a huge fan of the franchise and stuck with it even during its lowest of lows. Yes, I'm looking at you, Resident Evil 6. RE6? More like, you're fucking kidding me. But lately Capcom have been on a really good tour with Devil May Cry 5 pleasing many, Monster Hunter World gaining monster sales numbers, and Resident Evil came back.
Finally,
Resident Evil
has come back home.
Resident Evil 7 was just so good that when Capcom decided to announce a dream project that I've wanted for nigh on eternity, I was incredibly excited. And a little bit nervous. The game looked amazing, but remaking something that you love so much, it's a little bit scary. So many things can go wrong. So how did RE2 Remake do? Let's find out and dive into some survival horror. Well, wait, we already did the intro. Well, fuck so Resident Evil 2, eh?
Resident Evil 2.
Resident Evil 2 is the story of Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield. Leon is about to start working at the Raccoon City Police Department, the city which the game takes place in. You'd think a place named Raccoon City would be absolutely lovely and adorable. But no, we can't have that because our benevolent overlords don't want us to be happy. Only to find that the shambling undead have taken over the streets. Claire Redfield is the younger sister to one of the original Resident Evil's protagonists and resident boulder puncher, Chris Redfield. Resident Boulder Puncher. What a weird little spin-off title that would be. Well, hey, it can't be any worse than Umbrella Corps. The two end up going on their own little nightmarish journeys, with Leon meeting the mysterious Ada Wong and Claire meeting a child by the name of Sherry and the police chief, Brian Irons. Both characters get access to a small arsenal of weapons, but each character has exclusive weapons, such as Leon getting the shotgun and Claire getting the grenade launcher. Each character has their own motivations and their own stories, but they do come across each other from time to time. Now, I gotta say, this happened a lot more in the original game, and I was kind of hoping it would happen more in this title, and unfortunately they only met up a very small amount of times. It would have been kind of nice to see them get to know each other just that little bit more. Now, I cannot tell a lie. I was a little bit nervous about Leon and Claire's new designs, but I was incredibly wrong because hello new husbando and waifu! Please step on me, Claire. Leon says goodbye to the weird giant blocky pads of doom, and instead he now goes for a more modernistic look, which was actually quite a good idea, as I never really liked the weird blocky pads. I mean, what the fuck are they, and what are they even good for? What even are they? What do you do with them? How do they work? Why do they work? What is love? Baby, don't hurt me no more. Claire's outfit, however, changes almost completely. Gone is the retro outfit that we know and love, and is instead replaced by this red leather jacket, jeans and boots combo. I personally prefer this outfit as it just looks way less corny and way more badass. And it also makes me super fucking horny. So game mechanics then, eh? We're just gonna ignore that last part. This game mostly stays true to its original material, but the gameplay plays a lot differently now. Gone are the fixed camera angles and aiming mechanics, or barely even trying to actually aim mechanics, because let's face it, this shit wasn't hard. But I gotta say, something else is pretty hard after seeing that new look for Claire, and it's my pee. How the fuck do I have a girlfriend? Remake 2 takes more of a Resident Evil 4 approach to the gameplay. Roundhouse kicking and panty looking aside,
Oh, you pervert!
the camera is now free for the player to move around, and the movement feels as restrictionless as it has ever been. The aiming is also similar, with Resident Evil 4's red dot system being replaced by our typical run-of-the-mill crosshair. Leon and Claire both will move slower and hold themselves when injured, just like the past games, which is a really nice touch to add. Saving now functions like most other games, with the old school ink ribbon item needed to save system being reserved for the game's hardest difficulty, hardcore. And trust me, this mod is named 150% correctly because it is no joke. I actually played this for my first hour of Resident Evil 2 before laughing at my own stupidity and switching it down to the middle difficulty. You little bitch. Enemies hit much harder in this difficulty and resources are much more scarce, making the now tougher enemies that much harder to put down. The game only allows you to save with an ink ribbon, which means that if you die, you go back to your last save. Remake 2 The Remake Strikes Back also decided to take something from the past and bring it forward. This was in the shape of defense items. No, I don't mean condoms, you dirty bugger, get your mind out of the gutter. The remake of the original Resident Evil had defense items such as a dagger that you could use to escape a zombie grab, and Resident Evil 2 improves on that system. You can still use these items to get out of grapples when you need to, but you can also use the knife to slash enemies or throw grenades. The knife has a durability meter this time though, and will eventually break, so you need to use it sparingly. A great way of preserving resources in this remake is the new board item. Not that kind of board. This item allows you to block broken windows so zombies cannot slide into your DMs, but as is the fashion with Resident Evil games, you only get a limited amount, so use them wisely. But I have to say that my favourite change in this game is the gore. You can now sever zombies' limbs and tear their bodies asunder. It's horrific, it's bloody, it's a wonderful idea. Not only is it sadistic good fun, but it's also rather strategic. It's a great idea to shoot zombies in their legs, breaking them off to slow down the zombies' advances dramatically. Now, if only that was a viable option for my crazy ex-girlfriend. Hi. Which brings us forward onto the next section, the enemies. Resident Evil 2 Make brought back the shambling face munchers, and I could not be happier. I mean, don't get me wrong, Resident Evil 7 was a fantastic game, but these things... the enemies in Resident Evil 7 were rather boring and got old very fast, unlike zombies, which never get old, as the premieres of every game must have something to do with zombies as taught us. RE2Kick also brought back its list of entities I have on my never want to invite that fucking thing to my house list. Wait a second, I forgot to add my mother. Returning in this title are the classic Lickers, Plant Zombies, the Cerberus Dogs, and the Adult and Child Gs. A lot of the enemies function similar to their original counterparts, but the zombies in this remake are no joke. Seriously, you can pound them with bullet after bullet after bullet before they will even think about dropping to the ground. But even then, they are not guaranteed to be dead. Holy fuck! Oh, that scared the crap out of me. God damn it! On top of that, the bodies will not disappear after you down them, which then... On top of that, the bodies will not disappear after you down them, which then can leave them open to being a complete nuisance later on if you need to go back through the area in which it's possible that they will still be alive. As frustrating as it may be, it's actually brilliant. It adds a whole new layer of tension and also strengthens the inventory management and conservation aspects of the game. You put a bullet or two into this lifeless looking corpse to make sure it's really dead. Or do you just risk it and hope that it doesn't get back up? That is completely up to you as the player. But the real star of the show, by far, is Mr. X. This walking mass of kick your ass is no joke. It will follow you everywhere in its goal to kick your ass and take your dignity. It's fine. I didn't want that dignity anyway, I guess. What makes him even more scary is that you can hear his stomping footsteps as he gets closer and closer to you. Do not sleep on him, or with him. Not entirely sure why I said that. I mean, you can sleep with him if you want. Actually, no, please don't. I don't want you to make little Mr. X babies. I do not need that in my day. Thank you very much. Now, moving on to the soundtrack. Resident Evil 2's soundtrack is absolutely iconic, but the very odd thing about this remake is the soundtrack is nowhere to be found. I mean, you still have the save room theme and some other absolute bops. Remind me never to dance like that again, please. But for some reason, the rest of the game's soundtrack is, well, nothing. But that is a good thing. Instead of the usual We now instead get... It seemed like a very odd change to make with this game, but I have to say that it works incredibly well. The complete lack of music allows for so much more atmospheric sounds to take centre stage and truly make you feel uneasy, whether it be the creaking of the floorboards above you, or the occasional scream from a nearby victim of zombie fury taking them on down to Zombie Town. It all helps to create an amazing feeling of unease. And the worst but best one of them all is Mr. X's footsteps. You can literally hear this big ass motherfucker coming from you from like the state of Kentucky. It's absolutely horrifying. I do have to say though, when I said that the original soundtrack was gone from this game, I meant the remake soundtrack. The original soundtrack is actually still in this game and you can use it whenever you want. You can actually put this soundtrack on in the remake, but you gotta pay for it. For some reason, Capcom decided to gate off the classic and iconic original soundtrack for money, so if you want to hear it, then you gotta pay up. I mean, for Christ's sakes, even the classic
Resident Evil 2
is a part of this paid soundtrack, so if you want to hear, well, that, you have to pay for it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Anywho, let's get to the problems that I have with this game. Now, I have to say the amount of problems that I have with RE2 Make is actually not that many. Sometimes the bullet sponge zombies can be a little bit irritating, and I was also rather unhappy that Capcom decided to gate off extra outfits and the original soundtrack. Yes, I'm still mad about that. All of this is behind a paywall. I mean, the game does include the original RE2 outfits for beating the game, but it doesn't include any other outfits, which is pretty ridiculous. Especially considering that the original Resident Evil 2 had extra outfits. You could have these cool looking jackets and extra stuff in the game. You didn't have to pay for it. But hey, overall, in the grand scheme of things, I can look past all of this. But the biggest problem I have with this game, that may be a little bit controversial to some, is the 4th Survivor mode, Tofu mode, and the added DLC mods, which were also known as the Ghost Survivors. Now I want to go on record and state that I've never really been a fan of the ultra high difficulty point A to point B extraction runs. These missions are the only time that I have truly not enjoyed this experience. For those of you that are unaware, these missions have you get to a destination with parts of the map being blocked off in new ways so that you get railroaded down a particular pathway while having very limited ammo and so many fucking enemies. Holy shit, can you stop munching on my elbows please, Mr. Zombie? Fuck, now Mr. X is here! It's incredibly tough, and unless you are somehow gaming Jesus, you have to replay these mods again and again and again and again and again, trying to do better than your last run every single time. Now I will say that it is kind of good in the fact that replaying through these, you do start to feel this feeling of progression as you start to learn where the enemies are going to be, what weapons to use on them, the best strategies to use. It is very interesting, but it's just not for me. I prefer my Resident Evil experience to be suspenseful with puzzles and exploration implemented and tense atmospheres. Literally, if I could sum these missions up, it would be this is the Dark Souls of Resident Evil. Now, what was interesting and good about these DLC missions is that they actually added in new zombie variants, which granted, they weren't anything really extraordinary or anything really that new, but they were still interesting nonetheless. One of the new zombie types can be poisonous, another type is immune to normal weaponry and you have to use high damage weapons to kill it, and the other one is an armoured zombie. It's literally what it says on the tin. It's just a zombie with armour on. The one thing that I really do enjoy about these DLC missions though is the soundtrack is phenomenal. It's probably some of the best music in the entirety of this game and just makes you feel like you want to take on the world. Bring it on, zombies! So overall, I've got to say that Resident Evil 2 was my game of the year for 2019. It stood up to the test of bettering the original game whilst making the game more modern in its mechanics and design. It has a lot of fantastic moments and has an intense atmosphere to go with it. The bonus mode's difficulty had me feeling genuinely frustrated, but that did not stop me too much from enjoying this game to its fullest potential. Therefore, I give this game the rank of Masterpiece. Thank you for checking out what was my first video on this channel. I will be covering more Resident Evil games in the future, and I will also be making these videos on a lot of other games too, so stay tuned. Also, for any of you that may be into Let's Play style content, I do have another channel called ItsOcean. I'll leave a link for it in the description down below. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Pip pip to the moon!